today's class on Sati is possibly one of the most important in terms of the mental states that have to be developed. This one is completely non-negotiable. The others, along the way, you pick, you develop, you may lose it a little, shake a while, doable, it's still okay. But this one and the last one, which is panya, the two of them are non-negotiable. Without mindfulness, sati, without this particular mental state, there is no way you are ever going to understand Dhamma. And it has to be sama sati, correct mindfulness. Cannot be micha sati, wrong mindfulness. So tonight, what I hope to do is to provide sufficient explanation, insight, hopefully enough insight, so that you know exactly what you're supposed to do, and then you can go off and start practicing and doing it right. Sati is mentioned probably the most times. That in itself tells you that this is a very critical element. It's mentioned even more times than panya, which is wisdom. Think about that. Sati is mentioned even more times as part of the 27 factors of enlightenment, more times than panya, which is wisdom. And we know that ultimately whether or not you see it depends on panya, the correct panya. That's the one that cuts you through. But sati takes you all the way to the edge. And I'll show you from Satipatthana what we mean by take you all the way to the edge and kind of push you through. Okay? First, if you refer to your notes, I said that there are three parts to understanding sati, right? Part 1 as a tool, part 2 as a mental state, and part 3 as a factor of enlightenment. So first, as a tool. And as a tool, I'm going to discuss this in two parts. What does it do to the mind when this mindfulness, this particular mindfulness is present? Firstly, it helps the mind to be aware of the moment. It helps the mind, sati helps the mind to be aware of the moment. That's one state. A mental state where you are aware of just now, of presently, of being here, okay? It helps the mind to be aware of that. Secondly, it enables the mind to focus, to be objective. Sati helps the mind to be objective, to remember details. Remember that, huh? Remember all these things I'm saying. To be able to focus, to be objective, to remember detail, to be good at spotting things. You see, you when you focus, you spot, you must be able to gather the details, and then you must remember it. You see what I'm saying? A mental state, think of it this way, your mind, to be able to see Dhamma, your mind must be able to focus, be in the moment, to spot details, be very objective when they're spotting details, gather the material, remember the material, and all this while being very objective about it. Okay? Sati helps the mind to be in that state. Or you can say, when the mind is in a state like this, it is in the state of sati. Okay? When the mind is in a state when it is clear, it is focused, it is objective, it's able to spot things, give details, and remember them. That mind is in a state of Sati. Okay? Now you look at the stanza up there. I need you to, can you all see at the back? I need you to look at that stanza. Now, first and foremost, you understand that your normal state of mind is a bit garbled lah. It's very distracted. It's constantly getting caught up with events, objects outside. It's not mindful of event, not aware of events, not aware of objects. It's just very caught up. Think of it like you're watching a show. Okay? Think of it this way. You're watching a show. Sometimes when you're watching the show, you are not the character. You're detached from the characters. The main actor, the main actress, 哭得死去活来, no big deal. You're very detached, right? Sometimes they cry, you cry. They haven't started crying, you already start crying. That's when you are caught up. If you have Sati, your state of mind is in the first state when you are objective. Objective watching what? Watching yourself. If you have no Sati, no mindfulness, then you are like the second case. You are caught up and you're dragged along by the events. You okay? You understand that? Okay. Now, the Satipatthana Sutta is an extremely important sutta in explaining how to develop the Sati and what Sati does. Actually, the Satipatthana has two parts to it. And one part explaining what Sati delivers to the mind, helps the mind achieve. The second part, which is a much longer part, explains how we're supposed to develop Sati and what Sati feels like. So I'm going to depend very much on this sutta to take you through the practice, okay? Love it when Buddha provides all the details. Okay, you look at the stanza there, and it says, Buddha teaching the monks. This is the only way, ekayano maggo. Only way. Maggo is way. Maggo is the path. This is the only way for the purification of beings. 1. For the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation. 2. For the destruction of suffering and grief. 3. For the reaching of the right path. 4. For the attainment of Nibbana. 5. What does Sati do? Sati does 5 things. Based on this, Sati does 5 things, and each step it's not an elaboration of each other. Each step reflects deeper spiritual understanding and growth. Each one. The first one says for the purification of being, what it means is, if you are able to develop this mindfulness, your mind is clear enough for you to be able to see your own defilements as they arise. If you develop this mindfulness sharp enough, you should be able to start being aware of defilements of the mind as they arise. So if there is a loba thought, loba greed, if there is a dosa, ill will thought, or if there are various forms of cravings, irritations, restlessness, whatever negativities arising in the mind, you are able to spot it. Sati enables you to spot them as they come up. And because you spotted them, and because you are committed to the path, you want to push them out. Remember the last time we talked about virya. Virya, energy, is about being aware of negativities and let them go. Don't let them stay. Negativities which are not there, don't let them come up. Positivities which are there, you want to proliferate. If they are not there, you've got to bring it up. This here, the very first one, tells you purification of beings. Can you see how it works with your virya? Mindfulness If you have sharp mindfulness and you're mindful of virya as a practice, the two of them will work hand in glove to ensure that on a daily basis in your normal life, you try and avoid negativities in the mind, and you can do it because you have developed mindfulness, Sati. So the very first use for Sati is checking your own thoughts, checking your own behavior, checking the words that come out of your mouth. Checking it, nailing it, blocking them. Don't let them come up. Okay? And that's the first one. If you can do this, so basically, as a practitioner, this is only step one. This is your first step. Come step two, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation. What brings this expression? What brings this thing? Sorrow and lamentation, craving. Yes? It is craving that leads to dukkha. When you are not mindful, when you are caught up, you can't see craving. By the time you realize it, craving has overwhelmed you. And because craving has overwhelmed you, what happened? You will have aiyo, ayah, like that, how, etc., etc. The sorrow and lamentation, don't take it so intensely. It can well be annoyance and irritation. But here it says, for the overcoming, meaning to say, it happens. If it has not happened, it won't be called overcoming. So because you are practicing, that's why I said this is only step two. Step two, higher level of development. You're now watching craving, you see. But you're not so kilat, you're not so good at it. So craving can still come up, sorrow, lamentation will come up. But when they come up and you have mindfulness, you learn to watch the craving, you learn to let the craving be, and eventually you're able to let the craving go. When you're able to achieve that, if you're able to let craving go, what happens? Sorrow, lamentation drops. When you're angry it's because you want something, you couldn't get it. If you are able to say, it's okay, I don't have to have it, so that craving drops, the angst also drop. You see that? So the second level, the second stage of development is when you are beginning to be able to watch craving well enough for you to be able to let craving go. As they come up, sudah. You moderate them. You start to moderate your craving. You start to make it softer, not so hard. Your craving is not so intense. And as your craving becomes less and less intense, the sense of dukkha, the sense of sorrow, the sense of angst will start to reduce. Therefore, right mindfulness is what is required to enable your mind to be able to manage craving, let it go, and then get your mind back to equilibrium, which is delight, quiet, joy. Okay? Therefore, the second one. Third level of development. For the destruction of dukkha domanasam. Domanasasam. None. For the destruction of suffering and grief. Note, the earlier word is overcoming. Overcoming means it happened and you got to learn to let go. This one is destruction. At the next level of development is when your craving becomes so mild that eventually the craving doesn't arise anymore. At this level, craving doesn't arise. You are now watching it so well, your craving doesn't arise. And if craving doesn't arise, no arising of dukkha. No arising. They're not the same level. One is it came up. If you can let it go, it will drop. The pain will drop. The second one is you're watching your mind so well. Craving doesn't come out. When craving doesn't come out, no dukkha. You see that? It's not finished yet. Huh? At this level, it's not finished yet. You are still watching your mind to ensure that you can manage the craving. At this level of craving is very subtle. Craving has the more gross one, and craving has the very subtle one. The very subtle one sits in the mind, deep in the mind. The gross one is usually triggered by your external condition. Smell something good, I want some. See something nice, let's buy. iPhone 6 Plus. Hear a nice piece of music, download. Not pirated, get the real thing, pay for it, etc., etc. Okay, that's external. But this one is internal. Very subtle craving that sits inside. And if you are able to keep watching it and moderating, pacifying it, let it go, the dukkha doesn't even come up. But it's not over yet. You look at the next level. The next level says, for reaching the right path. For reaching the right path. At the fourth level, you're beginning to understand what is Dhamma and what is Adhamma. At that fourth level. When you understand what is Dhamma and what is Adhamma, you're more or less safe. By this level, you're more or less safe. So I want to take you again. You remember this. First level, when you're starting out, you're just trying to do the right thing. Preparing your mind for a spiritual practice, which is very tough. Just trying to do the right thing. Clean it up. At the next level, you're learning to be a good person, to be a good practitioner. You are watching your craving. Now you're very mindful of the negativities that come out already. And realizing that all these negativities are the reason why you're feeling all this angst. So you learn to overcome. You learn to let it go. You're learning to manage your more gross craving. At the third level is when you're quite good at this. You're a good practitioner. You're meditating. You're watching your mind. You're very mindful of the very subtle little wanting preferences that's still inside there, sticky like Velcro. And so you need to constantly manage those. If you can manage it, you will feel much better. Your heart will start to become more peaceful. At the next level, by now, because you've been watching your mind, otherwise there's no way you can hit level 3. Okay? For you to be able to hit level 3, start to pacify the angst and all, you're watching your mind very closely. Because you're watching your mind so closely, because you're practicing well, you're beginning to realize what's Dhamma and what's not Dhamma. And therefore, you can see the path. You can understand the right path. And you can walk the right path, and you can reach the end of the right path. And the last one, for the realization of Nibbana, Satchikriya is realization, tasting. So mindfulness, right mindfulness, takes you all the way to the end. And there are these 5 steps that you find yourself growing spiritually. Okay? Now, Buddha very carefully explained how to develop the correct mindfulness. I need you to pay very close attention to the words. You need to pay very close attention to how the words have been cast. I know when you guys read through it previously, the very first time, there's a very high chance that when you read it the first time, it didn't quite make a lot of sense. So there's a lot of trying to remember the words, okay? Then the second time you read through, you start to skip some words because, hey, I read through, I remember roughly what it said, start skipping words. But the third time you went through it again, you probably skipped too many words. Tonight you will see, hopefully, a slightly different perspective, okay? I'm going to take you through the words. Let me just get a sense. You're the ones who have read through it, right? Earlier on the explanation, is it new to you? New-ish to you? More or less lah. Okay, now it's going to be interesting. Buddha gave 4 sets of objects for us to pay attention to, pay mindful attention to. 4 sets of objects, and each set is to be watched differently. Each set is to be watched differently. And there's a reason why they are watched a little differently. Okay? 4 sets, but each one watched a little bit differently. And I need you to pay close attention to the words that he used. First, as a summary, what are the 4? A bhikkhu lives contemplating the body in the body, ardent, clearly comprehending, this word, clearly comprehending, sampajano, and mindful. Clearly comprehending, it's an extremely important word because it's repeated throughout. What it means is, you know it, you understand it, you don't think about it. It's not about thinking, no thought construction. You know it, you understand it, you see it, you know it, you understand it. You see it, you know it, you understand it. That's the idea, okay? Clearly comprehending, just bear in mind, it's about seeing something, understanding what it means. That's all, okay? As a verb. Okay, contemplating the body in the body, ardent, energized. Clearly comprehending, mindful, having overcome in this world covetousness and grief. He lives, so one set deals with rupa, body, kaya. The second set deals with contemplating feelings. Feelings in the feelings, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful of them, having overcome in this world covetousness and grief. That's the second set. First set is form, second set is feeling, third set is chitta, the mind, okay? Translated by Bhante Bhikkhu Bodhi as consciousness. But it's actually the mind. Ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having overcome in this world, covetousness and grief. And the fourth one, Dhamma. I refuse to translate it. Dhamma, in Dhamma, etc., etc. So, 4 sets of object. I will explain next. 4 sets of object. The first one is kaya, the body. The second one, feelings. Third, the mind. Fourth, Dhamma. If you look at these 4 objects, actually they get more and more and more subtle. The easiest for a beginner to see is your body, the form. It's gross. You cannot miss your breath. You cannot miss your posture, the activities that you undertake. They are very gross. So when you are practicing, when you first set off to practice, the first object that Buddha used for people who are new to this practice is the form. Because the form you can see more clearly than some other things. The form you can see more clearly. The second thing which is very obvious to people is feelings. Feelings are very obvious to people. They get very caught up with feelings. The trouble with feelings versus form is that people get caught up with feelings and then they can't see. When you get caught up, remember what I said earlier on, in mindfulness, there must be a certain detachment, certain objectivity. The mind is clear, sharp, see detail, but don't get caught up. Feelings, people get caught up. It's just very tough. Some people, when they first set off, they kept saying that, feeling, I can see feelings. Yeah, you can. Unfortunately, you're not seeing it right. You get caught up. Whereas form, higher chance that you can follow the rules clearly, okay? What is even more subtle than feelings? Your mind. Trying to see the mind, a state of mind, not the content, not thoughts. He didn't say thoughts, he said chitta, the mind. Broad awareness of the state, that's it. And the last one, which is obviously the most subtle, is Dhamma. In all the objects that you look at, can you see the Dhamma in them? Okay, let's go through elaboration. Next one, you shove it up.
Dhamma, is it talking about wisdom?
Nope. I'll explain to you afterwards. We'll take it through first. I will do body and feelings, and then we take a short break. Okay? This is going to take a long time. Now, I'm going to read to you. Now I will read slowly. Okay? An individual going to a secluded place. Secluded place. It has to be secluded because you need to focus on the mind. He recommended that you sit cross-legged, essentially to keep your body alert. Because if your body is not alert, there is a chance that you could fall asleep when you get too happy, too relaxed. You can fall asleep. So try and keep your body alert, hands upright. And then you fix the awareness in the area around the mouth, here. Okay? With this awareness, meaning to say right at this point when you put your attention to here, when you put your attention to here, with that awareness, he breathes in. With that awareness, he breathes out. This is start point. Start point to just bring a mind to a state of being present at this spot and mindful of breathing. It's an activity. You can say it's object, a breath, but here the Buddha was talking about an activity. Okay? Breathing in, breathing out, deep breath, he has an awareness. So basically you need to lock your concentration on an activity. Locking your concentration on an activity. But it doesn't stop there. If it were to just stop there, it would have been samadhi already. But it doesn't stop there. You are to then note in this activity, that breath, is it deep or is it shallow? This is only example. This is an example of what you can spot, what you can see when you're looking at breath. I need you to ask your questions now if you have any question. When you watch your breath, in how you watch your breath, you don't have to strictly follow SOP. It has to be long breath, short breath, deep breath. It need not be like this. Basically what it means is focus your attention on the breath, on the breathing activity. And as you're watching this breathing activity, you are teaching the mind to be noting the adjectives. You must be able to see the feature objectively. Observe the feature of the breathing activity objectively. So as an example, as an illustration, if your breath was a deep breath, you will note, oh, deep breath, shallow breath, light, heavy, up to you. But the point is to train the mind to observe the feature objectively. This step is very important. The point to bear in mind is seeing objectively and be able to just identify it without clinging to it. It does two things for you, okay? The first thing that it does for you is it keeps your mind awake. If you keep observing, it put in a lot of energy doing the observation, it keeps the mind awake. You don't fall asleep. The second thing that it does for you is you are training, your training has started. You are training yourself to see something objectively. You're teaching yourself, and breath is the easiest to train. You're trying to see something objectively. Detach, clear, detail, remember, objectively. All this training start already. Why do you need all these things? Because subsequently you want to see Dhamma, right? You know how difficult that is? Can't see your breath, you want to see Dhamma. You see what I'm saying? So if you tell me I want to see Dhamma, my first question is, what can you tell me about your breath? What can you tell me about your breathing? You tell me, I breathe well. Finish. Game's over. Start again. Objective lah. It's just strong, weak, no bad or good. So all these points here are illustration. Okay? They are illustration. It is not that when I sit, the first thing I must deep breath. The second one is shallow breath. It's an illustration. If your breath happen to be deep, note. If your breath is shallow, note. If your breath is light, note. If I can't feel the breath is so thin, can't see it, can't feel it, so be it. Note. Just note it. You have to keep doing this. It's a very important exercise, okay? I can't stress the importance of this enough.
Sylvia,
Oi.
what happens if the breath, you can't notice the breath, and then you go into samadhi, you get caught by it, how do you ease back?
Then take yourself from the breath, look into the mind. You can go into the mind already. You can do the other objects, okay? So the breath is start point for people who are new to the game. New to the game, you use the physical form. But when you are no longer you're a seasoned meditator, you're a seasoned practitioner, then you go into the other ones, the other objects. Okay? So, this one, he went on to say, look at the words Buddha used. In this way, he trains himself. This guy is new. It's a new practitioner. So he trains himself. He has to constantly practice again. Make it into a habit. You train to make something into a habit. If you have not been doing this in your meditation, must start. Okay? In this way, he trains himself, feeling the whole body. I shall breathe in. Now, this is not physical form. It's the breath, the entirety of that breath. Be mindful of your breathing, the process. You note the entire process, the entirety of the process. So as you are watching, when you start off, you are only looking at, this is different parts of the exercise. When you start off, we're very, very new, you're looking at one breath, right? Breathing in, breathing out. You're just looking at one breath. As you deepen in your mindfulness and your meditation, as it gets deeper, you no longer watch it so closely. You pull yourself out a little. Now you are watching the entire breath. You are no longer tracking it so closely. You are standing a bit further and you can see a bit more. When you're very close, you are watching it very closely, that breathing exercise. It's a shallow breath, it's a long breath, it's a shallow breath, it's a long breath. After a while, it's a breath. This is a breath. I'm seeing a breathing going on. You're beginning to form a distance. As your mind starts to quieten down, the next thing will happen. Your bodily activities calm. The breath becomes more quiet. When you watch around your form, it also becomes more quiet. When you're watching your mind, it also becomes more quiet. When you're watching your body, it becomes more quiet. You're moving further and further away from being caught in the tiny moment of that breath. So you watch, when you set off, you're watching in, out. Deep, shallow. You're caught up with it. As you become clearer in your observation, sharper in your mindfulness, you pull the camera lens back a little, you can now see the body of breath. Can you imagine that? You now see the body of breath. No longer just caught up with just a small breath, a short breath, or a long breath, deep breath, or whatever. You are seeing a body of it. As you pull back the camera even more, the mind starts to calm down. If you look at yourself, you should see that the breath is now very quiet. Your mind is very quiet. This is the part that talks about bodily activities calming down. They'll all start to calm down. When you first sit, even looking at your mind, you can see the mind very shaky, disturbing, energetic. As you sit for a while and you start to follow and observe quietly, everything will start to calm down. And you are still watching the breath. So because he's training, as I said, this man is in training. When you get a lot more familiar, then the way you start to watch the mind will change. The mindfulness bit will change. But when you first set out to do this, you have to follow the SOP. Because you're teaching the mind a new method, a new way of understanding itself, seeing itself. You're basically teaching the mind the skill. To eventually, this skill is for you to use to watch the mind. So as a start point, you have to be able to observe objectively until the mind knows how to calm down, and you can see the mind coming down. You can see your breath coming down. You can see the bodily activities all starting to calm down. And your observation of the breath is more detached, so you can see breath. While he dwells observing body in body internally, or he dwells observing body in body externally, he dwells observing body in body both internally and externally. Thus he dwells observing the phenomenal of arising in the body. Thus he dwells observing the phenomenon of passing away in the body. Thus he dwells observing the phenomenon of arising and passing away in the body. I will read on because I need the next part. Now his awareness is established. This is body. This is one part of the stanza. When you sit in meditation and you develop mindfulness, you can be aware of sensations emitting from within your body, such as heartbeat, such as growling of stomach, even to flow within, flow. Or you can be aware of contact, of temperature, of sensations which are on the skin surface. So internal, external. But what is important is you know, you note, you observe objectively, you just identify point by point. Cold, sharp, contact, touch, flow, rhythm. Just note. Observing body in body means seeing it as it is. Seeing as it is. It's a body. Seeing it as the body. In the body. Seeing it as it is in the body. Happening external. Seeing it as it happens external to the form. That's all. Just a bit convoluted. But seeing the form as it is, as it happens. So internally, if you were to observe that there is a certain heartbeat, some people are very sharp, they can actually feel that. Some people can see the rising and falling away of the abdomen as the air goes in and out, the chest breathing. So be it. Know it as a phenomenon that's happening in your form, within the body. It's a phenomenon happening. And external, you feel the sensations happening as it is. It's happening. Don't get into a state of my leg is cramming. Oh, cram. You're not ready. You're no longer seeing it as it is. Seeing it as it is would be pain, dot, higher, lower, more intense, less intense. Very sharp intensity. That's where you're getting to be caught up already. You get what I'm saying? And you know that this is form. Keep telling yourself this is form. Okay? Note, over here, Buddha stopped using the word breath. Breath is upstairs. Up into this point, he stopped using the word breath. Because now you're not looking at breath anymore. You're looking at form. Earlier on, you were looking at breath. This segment, it's not about breath. It's a new object for you to see. It is form. Okay? And he said, observe the phenomena of arising in the body and passing away in the body. What does he mean? If you sit and let's say you feel pain, okay? You feel pain emitting from your contorted position. If you observe this pain, you will notice that it arises and it will pass away. And it will rise again and it will pass away. So if you watch the form as it is, remember the word is as it is, then no attachment, complete detachment, you just observe it as it comes and it goes, as it feels, what it feels to you, the pain. Sharper pain, sharp. Milder pain, mild. Rising intensity rises. And as you watch it very sharply, very closely, you will notice that it comes and goes. A person who is at this level of watching is able to see it arising and dissipating. Coming up, fading away. Coming up again, fading away. Coming up again, fading away. Okay? This is just body. It is to help you arrive at a certain level of mindfulness. Okay? Now his awareness is established. This is body. Meaning to say, when you sit and you observe, in your mind, you just say this is a form. This is body. So you're not attached to it. You can only say this is body, not this is my body. This is just a body. Okay? The next part. Thus, he develops his awareness to such an extent that there is mere understanding along with mere awareness. In this way, he dwells detached without clinging towards anything in the world. This is how a monk dwells observing body in body. Okay. The very first part, if you recall, of the talk on the breath, if you remember, my emphasis was sharp. Sharp observation, follow closely, be able to eventually pull the lens back, see it from a distance, and observe how the activity starts to calm down. And the breath even gets quieter. By that point, you should be able to start seeing physical phenomena, the physical phenomena within the form. But Buddha wants the mindfulness that is required to be able to see Dhamma, that level of mindfulness is very tricky. It has to be sharp enough to see, but yet not so caught up. You need to be able to spot things, but at a distance. Think of it like you are going to do sniping, okay? You must be able to see sharp, but you are not caught up. That's why the awareness, so even as you are learning the clarity and the sharpness of being able to spot, you cannot get caught up by the experience. Because when you spot and you get very caught up, you will be sucked into the object. The breath, samadhi lah, into the breath. But you don't want that. You're pulling it back. You need to see it. You need to spot many things, but you cannot be caught up with it. So think of it as a general awareness. That's why he says mere awareness. Why mere understanding? Because we talk a lot. The moment we get caught up, our thought construction will begin. You don't want thought construction. This particular balance is sharpness of observation yet detached, clarity of observation with understanding yet no thought construction. The balance between the two sets must always be there. Okay? This skill is very critical for the practice of seeing Dhamma. Sharpness, clarity of observation, but not caught up. Cannot get drawn in too deep. So when you say, observe, right? But sometimes, and I've seen this before, I've gone for retreat and seen people doing this. Observe, and see things not there even. Because they have caught it so close that the mind's beginning to play tricks and they're not aware of it. For instance, this person was doing mindful walking. Mindful walking, no need to exaggerate. No need to exaggerate. You do your normal slow walk and just observe the process of walking. But some people have taken this process of walking to a very, very minute detail. So they actually take like half an hour to get to the end of the...
So long.
And when you do it this way, right, naturally pins and needles will happen, right? Your leg will get cramped at some point, right? So then they start saying, actually, you know, when you walk, there are sensations of pins and needles. Too close, too caught up. Can you see that? It's wrong already. It's completely wrong. So the mistake is the phrase that people don't necessarily highlight: mere understanding, mere awareness. To have a distance and yet sharp to catch. To understand sharply but no thought construction. You see, sometimes when you start to meditate, you will realize this. You can have a moment of clarity. This is impermanence. I now know what impermanence is all about. Impermanence has to be like that, like that, like that. The mind is talking already. So it's wrong. Spot, 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 spot. Note, note, sharp. Clarity. Some of you, for some of you, the things that I say tonight may not be very clear. May not know what I mean. Take it at face value. Just take it at face value. Yes.
Why don't you use subtle? Sounds better, I think, rather than mere. Subtle is like, you know what I mean? Like, I think subtle is the right rather than mere. Mere, like, you know. I mean, that's a question. Subtle. Subtle will be better, I feel.
Perhaps, but for English student, I will tell you that subtle has its own difficulty also. Subtle may create too much thought in people. Maybe. Maybe not. Yeah. Maybe not. I think it depends on the individual. But the word mere is, I guess, less room for doubt. It's less room for doubt. I mean, less room for question. Mere, mere. It's just that people will say, mere doesn't sound right, leh. Mere is correct. Mere and subtle, both correct. Huh?
Because whenever anything happens, any accident that's on the road, the person must be driving with a handphone, that kind of. So I understand the situation. I will also try to construct thoughts on it.
Right.
So that when you said me, that was really good in the sense of, I just look at it, there was an accident.
Okay.
Analyze the person using the phone,
okay.
the person must be drunk,
Right.
The one necklace too rich.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Accident. So I thought that was just nice.
Okay. So now you understand, to each his own, whichever, but the main, which is purpose for this explanation, so that you can see it, you see. Okay. Now, you note what he said. This is how the monk dwells observing body in body, body as it is. This is how you observe the body. So earlier was observing breath, now is observing body. You look at the next one. This comes daily activity. While going forward, backward, he does so with constant, thorough understanding of impermanence. Whether he's looking ahead or looking sideways, he does so with constant, thorough understanding of impermanence. Bending, stretching, wearing robes, carrying bowl, eating, drinking, chewing, savoring, does so with constant, thorough understanding of impermanence. And it goes on. This one has changed already. In this particular practice, in daily activity, you can't be watching closely the subtlety. In the other two, it's about meditation. You sit, you watch the breath, you sit, you watch your bodily form. Your mind is concentrated and observing as it is. So you can make all kinds of observation. But this is daily activities. In daily activities, the Buddha doesn't expect you to close your eyes and walk around watching your mind. So what did the Buddha ask you to do? Be mindful of impermanence. be mindful, and the exact expression, constant. So you have to build into your daily activity an awareness of being constantly mindful of impermanence with understanding. The word here, constant, thorough, understanding. What does it mean? So when you are washing, right, it is not impermanence. You are aware that this is the moment kept changing. You're doing anything, the moment kept changing. Why do you want to do it like this? So that the mind stays quiet and calm. In your activities, because your mind will wander off and play. If there is nothing to hold the mind will wander off and play. So what you would want to is to give the mind something, Dhamma, for the mind to hold on to it, because he is a practitioner. This guy is a practitioner. He's not already realized. He's still practicing. And if you're still practicing, in your daily activity, you want to keep each part of your daily activity more connected to Dhamma. So for instance, as you're walking to your car, if you remember to be mindful, then you're mindful walking and mindful that the moment is changing. If you want to do anything, eating, because this entire activity, eating. So when you're chewing, you can be mindful that the sensation keeps changing. When you're swimming, every stroke is a new sensation. So basically, you build into your daily activities a little moment of an oasis of awareness of Dhamma. And the better practice you are, the more such moments there will be. They are practitioners, so they are full-time. A lot of us here are checking this out for the first time. So you may not have that many moments of oasis of Dhamma. But the more you do it, the more there will be. And you want to have this awareness of impermanence. It's actually awareness of change. Your sensations change. Your experience change. To build into you the awareness of the change, because you want to, in your meditation, start off with a sense of impermanence. Straight away, you sit down, you look at your mind, immediately you see all the changing phenomena. It's the easiest to see. Of the three phenomenal characteristics of life, anicca, impermanence, dukkha, and that's translated loosely as suffering, and anatta, substancelessness. Which one is the hardest to see? Anatta. You don't see anicca, you barely understand dukkha, forget about seeing anatta. You see that? So this one is very important. Building the instincts of beginning to see the phenomenon of change in the world around you, in your experience in life. It gives you a certain sense of peace also. It's also to build a certain sense of peace. Okay?
You're doing this, do you label hot, warm? Because your mind will know the change. I mean, you feel the hot, warm.
He's asking you to be aware of change. So even if you say, sensation of warm, then you should know that earlier it was cold, and earlier it wasn't the sensation. So sensations have changed. You understand? In daily activities, much harder to try and spot the phenomena as it, because you're not building concentration, you're just living life. You're living a normal life. So in living a normal life, you also want to continue to keep in touch with Dhamma. And keeping in touch with Dhamma means even as you're doing things, you're mindful of, with understanding, with understanding of impermanence. It is not just saying change. It's not just saying impermanence. It is noting, observing that it has moved on, and this is really the nature of life. Condition upon condition upon condition, we keep changing, we keep moving. Our experiences keep changing. Especially where we go into the next lot, the last lot before we take a quick break. Mindfulness of feelings. Up until this point, okay, right? You can see the difference, huh?
But actually, I look at it, the most important is the meditation, the first one. It will build up on the
Correct.
your daily routine.
Correct.
Right? Then
Correct.
It becomes stronger and better.
Correct.
Better and better, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It actually goes in this series, okay? The next one, feelings. I forced myself to sit down and reread everything very closely for this class. Well, this class is doing me a world of good also. Here, a monk, while experiencing a pleasant sensation, understands properly. I am experiencing a pleasant sensation. While experiencing an unpleasant sensation, he understands properly. I am experiencing an unpleasant sensation. While experiencing a neither unpleasant nor pleasant sensation, he understands properly. I am experiencing a neither unpleasant nor pleasant sensation. While he is experiencing a pleasant sensation with attachment, he understands properly. I'm experiencing a pleasant sensation with attachment. While he's experiencing a pleasant sensation without attachment, he also understands properly. I'm experiencing a pleasant sensation without attachment. While experiencing an unpleasant sensation with attachment, he understands properly. I'm experiencing an unpleasant sensation with attachment. And when he's experiencing it without attachment, unpleasant sensation without attachment, he also understands properly. Experiencing unpleasant sensation without attachment. And it goes on. So you are looking at 3 categories. When you set off looking at feelings, you need to just give it firstly, you have only 3 expressions, 3 adjectives. You're not given more adjectives for feelings. It's either pleasant, unpleasant, or neither unpleasant nor pleasant. We are so brilliant, we love to change it to neutral. Neutral, unfortunately, is neutral. Buddha used the specific word, not this pleasant, not that unpleasant. So you are to be aware whether or not, basically what it means is this. It's not a third feeling. Basically what it means is this. You are aware when there is a pleasant feeling. You are aware when there is an unpleasant feeling. And you are aware when neither of them are there. You understand? There is no pleasant, there is no unpleasant. Too extreme. Okay? There's neither pleasant nor unpleasant. We will happily call it neutral, as I said, but the Buddha, I prefer to use his words. He's basically saying there are 2 types of feelings, and you can have a situation where you don't feel pleasant and you don't feel unpleasant, but there is still neither there. In other words, neither are there. So that's one set. When you set off, that's all you know. Because for you, it's still very vague. Feelings, you just know feelings. At the next level of development, when you are more sharp, you now can see whether your feelings, as a result of that feeling, does it come with attachment or no attachment? when you're sharper. So, example, you eat something, it's very pleasant. There is no arising of attachment, you know. It's just pleasant. The sensation is pleasant, but there is no accompanying arising of attachment. You must know it. If you taste something, it is pleasant, immediately craving arises, you must recognize it. Because craving, your attachment will come really. Your attachment will come. You understand that? As you start to practice and you become sharper in your mindfulness, then you are able to, when you experience something, know for yourself whether in the pleasant experience there is arising of attachment or not. And when there is no arising of attachment, you must know. You must identify it. Why do you need to identify it? Because again, subsequently, this path, the seeing the Dhamma, you must be able to see the connection between dukkha and craving. And then you must see that if there is no attachment, the pleasant sensation is just pleasant sensation, no dukkha. But if there is craving, there's attachment, the pleasant sensation then becomes unpleasant. You see that? There's a reason for everything that the Buddha says. And you just need to spot it. So in the same thing, if there is an unpleasant sensation, anger, it's very unpleasant. Pain is very unpleasant. Your anger comes with attachment. Your unpleasant sensation comes with attachment. Must spot that. Physical pain can have no attachment. When the physical pain arises, but there is no mind emotion attached to it, the physical pain comes and goes. It's just a sensation. There is no additional pain to the sensation. Okay? So this is the brilliance of the Buddha in explaining the mind. We haven't even gone to the last two yet.